I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here to irritate your mind. And I want you to read between the lines. It's not what they say, it's what they're not saying. I mix the truth with the lies and the lies with the truth. But at the end of the day, you love the lies and you hate the truth. Basically, that's what it is. So this video is on self-inflicted wounds and our debt to America. So, before I get into anything, I just want you to realize something that I understand with the millennials and Gen Z. Let me roll it. Millennials have an average attention span of 12 seconds, while Gen Z is closer to 8 seconds. This is a decrease from the average human attention span of 12 seconds in the early 2000s. Some say that Gen Z's shorter attention span is due to their constant exposure to digital content and multiple screens, as well as their upbringing in the era of instant gratification. So millennials and Gen Z, I would try my best to keep your attention span, but if I can't, well, that's life. Move on. Got 12 to 8 seconds, just move on. So I'm 51 years old, and in my era, there was this song that stand out to me. And I quote, "Nothing from nothing will leave you nothing." Well, you got to have something if you want to be with me. Listen, life is too serious, and that word love is too mysterious. I mean, a fly ninja like me, I need some kind of security. So ain't nothing going on but the rent. But excuse me, in my circumstance, as you can see this building right here, is the mortgage. And you have to understand, that person on the side of me that's supposed to be with me is either a liability or an asset. And in these times, in your times, you better make sure that person is an asset. Because in these times, majority of humans are just distractions. So I would get back to that with self-inflicted wounds, with distractions with humans that you feel like you in love with. Okay, I'll get back to that. But now let me give you an example of self-inflicted wounds. Now, I lived in Brooklyn all my life, okay? From when I was born to 8 years old until I had a circumstance with my family and my family broke up. Mother and father broke up. But guess what? Everybody got a sob story. Pay attention, but it's not that serious, right? So I had to move to the West Indies. I stayed in the West Indies for a year. I stayed with my mother and lived with her in a car for a year. And then I moved to a little town named Phoenicia in the Catskills. Went to school there for a year. Came back to Brooklyn. Went to all kinds of schools. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody got a sob story. Pay attention. It is what it is, right? But we're not going to worry about the sob stories. I am going to show you self-inflicted wounds growing up. Now, I grew up in Brooklyn, like I said, majority of my life. And I've seen people that had opportunity, a lot of opportunity of building wealth. And they just, well, how can I say it? They smoked it up in that demon glass crack pipe, okay? And this is what I call self-inflicted wounds, because these buildings now in Brooklyn, they're worth $1 million and up. $1 million and up. Not to brag, not to boast. I'm showing you an example. Your grandmothers, your mothers, your father, whoever, they got in their knees, scrubbed those floors, did 2 or 3 jobs, being a maid, right? Babysitting, all this stuff to buy these houses. And what did the next generation do? Instead of using this as an asset, well, they wasn't responsible. So people say, oh, you inherit this, you inherit that, and life is easy. No, 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 no. It's a self-inflicted wound. Because as you can see, the other generation didn't take control of something that somebody left for them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Smoking that crack. Yeah, I grew up in the 80s where crack valves, insulin syringes, glass broken from car windows, cars on crates because their tires are missing. I mean, I seen it all. Graffiti all over the place. So I grew up in that era, and I also see my peers and friends and stuff sucked it up on that glass dick, as I can say, right? And lost it all when they had their mothers or grandmothers that had a good opportunity to give it and pass it on to their sons or daughters. And this is what happens. So when I hear people say, oh, you inherit this and you inherit, it takes responsibility to pay the property taxes, property insurance, the water bill, the light bill, the gas bill. If one of your tenants, I mean, I don't know why when you have a building in Brooklyn that don't have tenants, it's an asset. Don't make your building a liability. And if you have tenants, if a boiler breaks or the refrigerator breaks or something breaks, you got to be there. And that's your responsibility to fix it. So when I grew up and I see all these people, and I'm talking about blacks, okay? That's complaining now. They're gentrifying the neighborhood and all the white people coming in and this and that and that and this. I listen to them and I'm like, Lil, why didn't you take the opportunity and take that and triple your worth and have leverage? And then you know what I get? I get people saying, oh, you don't own nothing. You really, when you die, you ain't taking nothing. Well, yeah, that's true. But in the meantime, while you're here, you know the difference between renting and owning. It's two different things. Yeah, when you leave this earth, you're not going to take it with you. But one thing about owning something, you have leverage. You have leverage. Yeah, the bank could take it from you if you don't pay your HOA. The bank could take it from you if you don't pay your taxes, right? It could put a lien. They could do what they got to do, right? But there's a responsibility to the owner to make sure these things don't happen. So when I hear people saying all this and that, and I laugh at my generation of people that was growing up with me. I laugh at them because now I see some of them addicted to crack. Well, the side effects of crack and stuff like that. So, you know, and listen, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. From the age to 16 all the way up to like probably 19, yeah, before I entered the gym and found a whole family, a new family, I was dibbling and dabbling, trying to find the best chemical, because that's what was in at the time, to get high, okay? So this is nothing new under the damn sun, okay? Rather it's then or now. But it's all because you have to have responsibility. If somebody gives you something, this is the time to snap out of it and take that opportunity and grasp that opportunity while you can and be responsible. So now let's move on to your better half, your significant other. Is that person a liability or is that person an asset? What do that bring to the table? See, the funny thing is, at this age, I'm looking at gender wars, I'm looking at a lot of stuff, and it seemed like one thing that's heightening is self-gratification, fast gratification, instant gratification, as I say, and entitlement. Okay, and this is a part of technology. It's going to give us more entitlement. A lot of things is going to give this generation entitlement, and like I said, certain things heighten, certain human characteristics heighten, and one of them is selfishness, greediness, pride, pride, and it just, I see no compromise when people have an attention span of 12 to 8 seconds. Yeah, and the way I say it, not blaming the system, but when you keep flicking the screen over and over and over and over again, it does something to the brain subconsciously, whether you like it or not. Whether the system is trying to make us not concentrate long enough, hey, maybe that's what it is. Maybe the system don't want us to own anything and only run a rent, right? and give us excuses. Well, you never own anything. And I always say when you own something, you have leverage. You have a lifeline. You have more than one lifeline. You could take out for equity. You could take out, you have certain things that a renter can't even do. So when I say inflicted wounds, I'm showing you, as I'm 51 years old, I seen my peers that had the opportunity, right? And they didn't take it. What they did was party and bullshit, get high on drugs, and never worked as hard as their grandparents. Never worked as hard as their grandparents to and I think that's a spit in the face. That's a self-inflicted wound that we have to understand. All right. Now another thing, growing up in the 80s, right? In Brooklyn. And a lot of other peers that I know that, they didn't get hooked on drugs or whatever, but they moved on. But some of them were married. Now I'm going to talk about the married people, right? At that time, because at one time it was very easy for one person to secure a whole household, okay? And that was the man. He brings home the bacon and she cooks it, basically. Just like anything back in the days, we hunt, blah, blah, blah. You know the story, right? But come on, man. Let's just be honest. In my era, we don't want our women to work. We didn't never want our women to work. We want them to stay home. We don't want them to be around other men, right? At that time, if we was able to bring home the bacon, the swine, the meat, whatever it is, we won't want them to come out the house, okay? Unless we're going out as a family. That's what was going on at that time. The options was the man could bring home, pay the bills, pay the rent, blah, blah, blah. And even if a woman say I want to work, majority of men, basically in their mind, would rather their women stay at home and be with the kids. That's in my generation, right? Because we was able to. But now guess what? It caught up with us. 10, 20, 30 years going by, and it caught up with people that is married. And when you create a habit, it's hard to break a habit. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So if you was a man that says, nah, you're not working, and that woman been home all this time, taking care of the kids and the household, well, times change and things get rearranged. Now that one man can't secure a household. So what happens? He's going to have to work 2 jobs. He had 3 jobs. So in that time, if you was married and you had a woman that was working and y'all both created a habit where both of you are working and both of you could come back home and contribute to the household, that was the best habit to ever have. Because now in these days, if you're older, at my age, and your wife never worked and and you're gonna push it out there, well, it's either one, she don't have the ambition, or you're not giving her enough ambition in the first place because you never wanted her to work. 2, she just don't want to go out and work. And don't let her blow that up in your face saying, hey, did you tell me you didn't want me to work? Right? That you got this covered? Well, it's hard to cover this now while you stressing 2 or 3 jobs to bring home the meat and potatoes. That's basically it. So that's another self-inflicted wound. If you was at that age, younger, with a wife, and now she's in her 50s and she's got to work. Listen, this is what I'm talking about growing up in my life. I see people getting these predicaments, and then your better half will say, well, you didn't want me to work. Oh, yeah, well, you know what? Times are hard now. I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, and that's where the argument comes, and that could end up being a separation, okay? For all the stress with economics and inflation and blah, 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 and all this shit, right? So that's another inflicted wound if you're a couple. It's hard out here. And I always say to myself, all these young people always trying to get out the house and move on their own. And I'm like, listen, you're never on your own If you got to pay $3,000 of rent, right? And you got 3 or 4 people roommating, are you on your own? No, you're sharing. Oh, what'd you say? Oh, everybody have their own room. Yeah, but still, you still got to label the food. Still, you got to let everybody announce that you're going to bring he or she over. You can't walk around slinging your dick in the hallway, right? You got to have a certain time that we use a shower. What'd you say? Oh, baby, we got 2 or 3 showers. You can come up with all the excuses you want. I don't care. At the end of the day, the way you be independent is when you could lock and unlock your own door, come in your house and come out your house by yourself, okay? And sleep on all that other stuff. Yes, 2 or 3 roommates because you want to live in a good area, blah, blah, blah. But nowadays, if you're not making sufficient funds, you can't do it on your own. You can't do it on your own. So the best thing to me was, hey, if I got kids, I'll tell them, listen, stay at home. And when you stay at home, your responsibility is to bank up. Bank up as much as you can. Bank up as much as you can. Just don't be staying home slacking. No. If you're staying home and you're working and you can't make it on your own, and don't worry about sharing and renting. I mean, unless it's that bad at home where you don't want to be with your family, well, then you got to kick rocks and do what you got to do. Right? But if you have a situation where stress-free at home, stay home and bank up in these times of days. That's the opportunity you have. I think you should take that if you have a loving family. Okay, I'm just being honest. So those are the self-inflicted wounds I see with couples and marriage, people that's married and for a long time. And times are changing on them. There's certain ways that you was thinking back then you can't think now. You can't think now because now it's nipping you in your ass where, listen, you're in your 50s, maybe getting close to your 60s. Rent, mortgage, life, all these things, they don't age. They just keep coming on and on and on. So you're going to have to find ways, maybe all the way to your 70s. And I'm going to tell my young people a couple of things. Like I said, I want to get into your better half being a liability or asset. And that's when it comes into play when I talk about being prepared individually before you step in that realm of feeling being in love and that person. Because the way I see it now, that the way the characteristics of human beings are being changed, whether you think it's the system changing it or the technology is changing it. Now, you know things are changing if you're seeing humans getting traded for robots to do work in warehouses. Am I right? That's one. So more companies and warehouses are taken over by robots. Another thing, if you got too much pride and you're too entitled to take certain jobs, we all know immigrants going to come over here and take those jobs. I think they're looking for a new America. Okay, that's the way I see it. They're looking for a new America to come over here and replace the entitled America. Okay, whether you like it or not, your feelings do not matter. You see, this day is a nice day. It's going to become dark, and then tomorrow is going to be bright again. But guess what? The day don't care about your emotions. The day don't care about your emotions, whether you're happy, sad, glad, envy, jealous, hateful. The day keeps going on, and that's the way bills keep going on. It just keeps going on while you stuck with emotional retardation about your situation. Everybody got a pass. Paying attention is free, right? And that's another thing, advice. It's another self-inflicted wound, giving advice to people. See, on this channel, I'm going to give you good and bad advice because I noticed that there's a generation that's entitled. And when you're entitled, and now this doesn't go for this generation, this goes for past generations because I've seen it. You ever saw, what's that thing? White underbelly, some shit like that. It's a channel. And they show, let me just sit down here for a minute. They show people that brought up in bad households, been abused, mentally abused. What else? A lot of things, right? And they tell you how they become crackheads, prostitutes, drug dealers, strippers, and all this shit, right? But then you have a group of them. You have a group of them, and the guy asks them, well, what made you become a stripper? What made you become a prostitute? What made you become this and that and that and this and put you in this situation? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, hey, man, if your daughter grows up to be a porn star or, you know, she's got to find a way to put food on the table. What'd you say? Say it again. Oh, you're saying that if I had a daughter, I won't be saying that. Well, I don't have a daughter, but I understand one thing about parenthood. From the time you come out your vagina, your mother's vagina, from all the way to 18 or 19, I'll push it. I'm there for you. I'm going to give you the best advice, the best morals. I'm going to tell you what to do and what not to do. And under my roof, you're going to listen, right? And the one thing that people don't like rules, even adults, but there's a lot of kids that don't like rules. And life is not that hard life is not that hard at home, but they make it hard because they don't like rules. So what do? Soft White Underbelly. Go subscribe to me. It's a channel, right? And when this channel, you hear people say, well, I never really had a bad household. Oh, I did have a mother and father. But what's the first thing they say? Well, they were strict and they had too many rules. And listen, you could break your back as a parent and do the right thing. You could break your back and do the right thing. Put them in private school, sports, activities, this and that. Set rules, set boundaries, right? But if these kids don't like rules, well, they rebel. And what do they do when they rebel? Majority of the time you see them at the Greyhound, at Port Authority, right? Coming off the bus, entering a new world. Why? Because they don't like rules. Now they got to learn the rules of the streets, okay? And now their pride stopped them from going back home because you know why? You know what that pride is telling them? I fucked up. I should have listened to my parents. Life was so easy. Now I'm a prostitute. Now I'm a stripper. Right? And hey, like I said, as a parent, you have to be a parent. But you can always understand that because you see pastors and preachers, their kids is all over the place. And you're like, well, you're a pastor, you're the preacher. Why is this person here all messed up? Why your son or your daughter's messed up? And like I said, I always tell people this. Forget the pastor. I'm just talking about in general. You could have 5 sisters or you could have 5 brothers. Okay? Out of those 5, 2 might fuck up and the other 3 might succeed. Okay? And they still living in the same household. Yes, it might be at different times. You might have the newborn, you might have the late one and but see, if you're living in a good household and you have no issues and no problems, like you're not getting mentally abused or sexually abused, if you're bitching and moaning about some fucking rules and you can't take it and you want to go out on your own, well, you reap what you sow. Okay? So if you go out there, and I hear some of these women, they say, well, I came from a good household. I just didn't want to deal with the rules, so I left. Right? And sometimes you have to understand, there's good choices and there's bad choices. But the key word is choice. And even if you tell somebody from the day they came out their mama panani all the way to 18, don't do this, don't do that, some people got to feel it the hard way. And guess what? Look at my little friend come to visit me. Oh, man, I scared you? Yeah, and one thing you got to understand is that some people adapt and love the hard way. Okay? It sounds kind of crazy. It sounds ill will, but that's what it is. Some people love that situation. They get an adrenaline rush from it, doing the opposite of what you tell them to do. They have to exist. Ain't nothing new under the sun. It's got to exist. So if it exists, why am I trying to give you good advice? Why am I trying to give you good advice on things that bad things you do in order to succeed in life. If you got to sell your pussy to get day by day, and you put yourself in that position, and maybe you might like it, more power to you. And you say, how come you can say it if you got a daughter? What if, but like I said, from the day you come out your mama pussy, from the time I am giving you the best, I'm sheltering you, giving you clothes, giving you morals, and giving you all this. If you decide to go from 18, you're an adult, okay? Let's not make excuses because there's too much rules in the household. That's the reason why you left, okay? So I'm talking to parents. Don't ever be stressed out. Because like I said, I know you have 5 sisters. I know you have 5 brothers. And you'd be like, damn, what happened to that brother? Well, he wanted to go that route. It is what it is. We got a choice to get good choices, bad choices, good and evil. It's a choice. It is what it is. So these are self-inflicted wounds, especially if you're a young person. And especially in your era and at this day, keep your ass home if you have a good family. Forget the rules. Rules apply, and it gets harder when you're out there in those streets. It does. But if you don't want to listen, please be my guest. Go and learn the easy way. Because that would be the easy way. Because the hard way was at home, right? See, we got to do reverse psychology over here. You know what I'm saying? Hard way was at home. The easy way is out there. But guess what? You'll never go back home because your pride. Your pride. And plus, you don't want to hear, I told you so. Right. So let's move on about your era and what would I do if I was 50? I'm 51 now. What do I do if I know all this knowledge, right? Knowing what I know in the past about people inheriting buildings, right? A lot of black people inheriting things and they can't keep up with it because it was always party time. And then when you see the surroundings around you start to change and you see it gentrified and stuff like that, all of a sudden they're talking about, oh, they taking our community away. Or no, well, guess what? If you stayed in your community and did the positive things like when your mother or father died and you had a job, 9 to 5, working on a plantation, trading time for money to keep up with some of these bills, or at the same time while you're trading time for money, you got some tenants helping you with your bills, right? And then if you have kids, you could preach and teach to them that this is your wealth right here. This is your backbone right here that's going to help you move on in life when life at this time gets hard. See, we don't know how to give wealth. This is why I'm doing this specifically. I'm giving you the details about self-inflicted wounds in the neighborhoods, right? And they just say, well, you know, the system, they pumped a whole bunch of crack and, you know, and cocaine and this and that. But you always have a choice. I had a choice. Yeah, I went that route. But I woke up. What was your reasons why you wouldn't wake up? And hey, we could blame the system, saying it's strategic, and hey, maybe that's true and everything. But guess what? Somebody made it out of that shit. I did. And I'm pretty sure I see a lot of black owners that's been around my neighborhood for the longest. Like I said, they've been around when cars was broken into, glasses. When you're trying to go to the train station, all you see is blood stains on the sidewalk, needles, syringes, crack, vials on the floor, all different colors, graffiti, tires missing from fucking cars. So, yeah, it's an individual thing. And if every individual had did their part, right, you'll still see people with wealth, black people with wealth, right? So, you could blame the drugs, you could blame the system, you could blame the government. But, hey, I saw opportunity, I took it. I traded time for money, 22, 23 years, I took it. I got tired yesterday in the backyard talking, so I will do a part 2 to this, Americans' debt and inflicting wounds, okay? It's early in the morning, I get my coffee, I'm about to get on the plantation, all right? So I'm fumbling and stumbling. But, you know, remember, the attention span, I don't want to go past 30 minutes on this because, you know, attention span is hard for people to listen in this day and age, right? So Yeah, I will talk about, no one's swift to finance, and make sure that person on the next side of you that's supposed to be helping you is an asset and not a liability. So I'll get into that in part 2. Until then, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here to irritate your mind. It's not what they say, it's what they're not saying. Read between the lines and listen. I tell the truth and I lie and I lie and I tell the truth. But at the end of the day, bizarre world love the lies and they hate the truth. Rah!